There are moments in life when the noise around you fades, the activity slows down, and inside you feel nothing but a heavy silence. That silence is not peace. It is emptiness. You can be surrounded by people, busy with responsibilities, successful by every measure, and still feel hollow inside. That emptiness is a signal. It is your soul's way of saying, you need to be filled with something greater than yourself. When you feel empty, the first thing you must do is stop looking for quick fixes. Many of us try to fill the void with entertainment, food, shopping, relationships, or work. These things may distract you for a moment, but they cannot heal the emptiness of your soul. The first step is to pause, take a breath, and admit, I cannot fill myself. That humility is where true strength begins. The second thing to do is turn your emptiness into an invitation. Instead of resisting the feeling or pretending it's not there, let it point you back to the source. You were created with a God-shaped space inside you. That space will never be satisfied by possessions or achievements. It is only satisfied when you reconnect with the one who made you. When you feel empty, pray, even if it's a simple prayer. God, I feel dry. I need you right now. Those words open the door for his presence to enter. Third, surround yourself with truth. Emptiness is often filled with lies. You're alone. You'll always feel this way. The way to silence those lies is by filling your mind with truth. Read words of scripture, listen to uplifting messages, or write down promises that remind you of your identity and purpose. The emptiness begins to shrink when truth takes root. Fourth, don't isolate yourself. When you feel empty, the natural response is to withdraw. But emptiness grows in silence and secrecy. Reach out to a trusted friend, a community of faith, or someone who can speak life back into you. Being open about your struggles does not make you weak. It makes you human. And in those conversations, you will often discover that you are not the only one who has felt this way. When you feel empty, the first instinct many of us have is to run toward the things that promise quick relief. We reach for entertainment, scrolling endlessly on our phones, binge watching shows, or immersing ourselves in distractions that numb the ache inside. Others turn to food or shopping, chasing that temporary satisfaction of filling the gap with something tangible. Some bury themselves in work or in the pursuit of recognition, hoping that achievement will make the void disappear. But here's the truth. No matter how much we consume, no matter how busy we make ourselves, those quick fixes never actually heal the emptiness inside. Now, they may dull the pain for a moment, but once the noise fades and the excitement wears off, we are left right where we began, hollow, restless, and longing for more. That is because emptiness is not a surface problem, it is a soul problem. The first step when you feel that hollow weight pressing on your heart is to admit it. To stop pretending you're okay, to stop covering it up with smiles or busyness, and simply whisper to yourself, I cannot fill myself. That kind of honesty takes courage because we live in a world that celebrates self-sufficiency. We are taught that if you work harder, buy more, achieve greater, you will eventually feel complete. But if that were true, then the wealthiest, most successful, most famous people would be the happiest. We know that many of them struggle with emptiness just like anyone else. Admitting you cannot fill yourself is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is recognizing that the human heart was never designed to sustain itself on its own fuel. Think about it like this. A car cannot run without gas, and no matter how shiny or expensive the car is, if the tank is empty, it won't move forward. You can polish the exterior, take pictures of it, show it off to others, but until it has the right fuel inside, it is stuck. In the same way, you can dress up your life, look successful on the outside, and even convince people you have it all together. But if you are running on empty inside, the smallest setback can stall you, the slightest disappointment can shake you, and the quiet moments reveal how tired and restless you truly are. Stopping the cycle of quick fixes means slowing down long enough to acknowledge the deeper hunger within. It requires a pause. Most of us are uncomfortable with silence because silence forces us to face what we've been avoiding. But that pause is sacred. because it gives you space to reflect on what your soul truly needs. And in that space, you begin to realize that the emptiness you feel is not something to be feared. It is an invitation to look beyond the temporary and seek what is eternal. This is why the first thing you should do when you feel empty is not to run toward what is flashy or easy, but to step back and name what is really happening. Say it out loud if you need to. I am empty. What I've been chasing cannot satisfy me. That statement of truth has power, because once you admit it, you stop wasting your energy on illusions that will only leave you more drained. Begin to redirect your attention away from shallow fillers and toward the deeper source of fulfillment. When you choose not to rely on quick fixes, you are also protecting yourself from disappointment. Every time you reach for something temporary and it fails to satisfy, the emptiness inside actually grows heavier. It convinces you that nothing works, that you're stuck forever. But that is a lie born out of misplaced hope. Quick fixes were never designed to fill you. By refusing to lean on them, you protect your heart from the cycle of hope and letdown, and you make room for something real to take root in your life. This principle also applies in relationships. Many people try to fill their emptiness by demanding more from others than those people can possibly give. They expect a spouse, a friend, or a partner to be the cure for their inner hollowness. And when that person falls short, the disappointment is crushing. But no human being was created to carry the weight of your fulfillment. Expecting another person to solve your emptiness is unfair to them and unhealthy for you. That is why the first step is always to turn inward with honesty and stop asking temporary or imperfect people to provide what only a deeper source can. Even achievements and goals fall into this category of quick fixes. Success can feel thrilling, but the moment you reach one goal, another one appears. The finish line always moves. If your sense of worth and fulfillment is tied to accomplishment, then your soul will always be running but never resting. That's why even after achieving something significant, people often describe an unexplainable letdown. The crowd may cheer, the world may applaud, but inside there is still a whisper. Is this all there is? The question arises because you cannot achieve your way into fullness. Achievements are wonderful, but they were never meant to be the foundation of your identity. Stopping the search for quick fixes does not mean you stop living or enjoying life. It means you change your approach. You begin to recognize that temporary pleasures, while enjoyable, are not the cure for an empty soul. You start to put them in their proper place. Good for moments of refreshment, but not capable of sustaining your spirit. This awareness frees you from chasing one distraction after another and allows you to use your energy more wisely. At the heart of this truth is the realization that emptiness is not solved by addition. Adding more things, more noise, more busyness. It is solved by alignment. It is solved by placing your life in harmony with the deeper source you are created to depend on. And the first step toward that alignment is honesty, admitting that you cannot fill yourself, admitting that quick fixes will never be enough, and choosing to face the emptiness instead of running from it. When emptiness comes, it can feel like a heavy shadow sitting over your heart. You wake up and go through the motions, but deep down there is a quiet ache that nothing seems to touch. Many people try to push that emptiness away, as though ignoring it will make it disappear. But emptiness does not go away when you ignore it. It lingers, it deepens, and it quietly shapes the way you see yourself and the world around you. The most powerful thing you can do when you feel empty is to change how you see it. Instead of treating it as a curse, see it as an invitation. That hollow feeling inside is not random. It is a signal pointing you back to the source of your life. Emptiness is really a space that has not yet been filled with what it was designed for. Think of a house with a room that has been left bare. You can keep stuffing it with boxes, you can pile it up with clutter, but the room will not feel complete until it is furnished with what it was meant to hold. The same is true of the human soul. When you feel that void inside, it is not because you are broken beyond repair. It is because you are being reminded of what you were created for. That space inside you was designed to hold connection with your Creator. When it is missing, you will always feel incomplete. Turning emptiness into an invitation requires a shift in perspective. Rather than asking, why do I feel this way? Begin asking, what is this emptiness trying to show me? That simple change opens the door to healing. Because what emptiness is showing you is that the surface things you've been leaning on cannot sustain you. It is teaching you that you were made for more than surviving from one distraction to the next. It is an invitation to pause and turn toward the one who knows how to fill you completely. For many, emptiness feels like weakness, but in reality, it is often the doorway to strength. When you feel empty, your defenses are down. You are more honest, more real, more open to something greater than yourself. And that openness is the very posture that allows God to pour his presence into you. A closed fist cannot receive a gift, but an open hand can. Emptiness is that open hand. It is the space where you are finally ready to admit you need help, ready to receive what your soul has been longing for. The problem is that most of us try to numb emptiness before we ever give it a chance to lead us back home. We get uncomfortable with silence, so we fill it with noise. We feel unsettled in solitude, so we chase after crowds. We fear being alone with our own thoughts, so we drown them in busyness. But emptiness that is numbed is only postponed. It always returns, and often it comes back louder, pressing harder, until we have no choice but to face it. That is why the healthiest thing you can do is respond to emptiness immediately by turning it into an invitation. Practically, that means pausing in the middle of your restlessness and lifting up the simplest of prayers. God, I feel dry. I need you. Those words do not have to be eloquent or long. They do not need to be rehearsed or memorized. They just need to be honest. Honesty is what invites God into your emptiness. You don't need to pretend to be strong. You don't need to polish your words. And you don't need to hide your weakness. You just need to be real. Because realness is what creates the opening for him to step in and do what no distraction or quick fix could ever do. Turning emptiness into an invitation also means being willing to slow down. In a fast-paced culture, slowing down feels like falling behind. But what good is moving quickly if you're heading in the wrong direction? Emptiness has a way of forcing us to reevaluate where we're going and why. It strips away the illusion that success, possessions, or approval will make us whole. It reminds us that no matter how much we achieve, if we are not connected to the source of life, we will still feel like something is missing. This is why some of the most transformative moments in life happen when people finally stop running from their emptiness. In that stillness, they realize that emptiness is not their enemy. It is their guide. It is the compass pointing them back to where they belong. When you feel hollow, it is not proof that you are unloved or abandoned. It is proof that your heart is still alive, still longing, still searching for the one it was made for. And that longing itself is the greatest invitation you will ever receive. When you allow emptiness to become an invitation, it begins to shift from being a weight to being a window. A weight drags you down, but a window lets in light. The same feeling that once made you discouraged becomes the very reason you reach out for something higher. The very ache that once made you feel hopeless becomes the very signal that hope is near. This is why some of the deepest spiritual breakthroughs come in seasons of emptiness, because emptiness clears the clutter and makes space for what really matters to enter. Instead of fighting emptiness, embrace it as a holy signal. Instead of running from it, let it draw you closer. Instead of covering it up with noise, let it open your heart to silence where you can hear the gentle whisper that says, I am here. Because emptiness is not the absence of everything. It is the reminder of the one thing that matters most. And when you treat it as an invitation, you discover that the very place where you feel weakest is the place where you can become most deeply filled. When emptiness takes hold, it is often not just the absence of feeling, but the presence of lies. Lies that whisper into the quiet places of your mind, telling you that you are not enough, that you are forgotten, that nothing will ever change. Emptiness creates space. And if that space is not intentionally filled with truth, it will be taken over by deception. That is why one of the most essential steps in responding to emptiness is to fill your mind with truth. Because what you believe in the hidden spaces of your heart will shape the way you see your circumstances, the way you respond to challenges, and the way you value yourself. The human mind is like soil. Whatever you plant in it will grow. If you let negativity, fear, and lies take root, they will grow into patterns that choke out hope and joy. If you plant truth, encouragement, and promises, they will grow into strength and resilience. The problem is that when you feel empty, you are often at your most vulnerable. Lies sound louder because they echo inside the hollow spaces of your heart. If you're not careful, you begin to mistake those lies for reality. That is why you must choose to be intentional about what you let into your thoughts. The lies that feed emptiness usually sound familiar. They tell you that you will always feel this way, that your efforts don't matter, that nobody cares, that you are unworthy of love or purpose. These are the kinds of thoughts that keep people stuck in cycles of despair. But just because a thought enters your mind does not mean it deserves a place in your heart. You have the power to replace those lies with truth. And truth is not just positive thinking. Truth is rooted in what is unchanging and eternal. It is the anchor that steadies you when your feelings are unstable and your circumstances are uncertain. Filling your mind with truth means being intentional about what you read, what you listen to, and what you meditate on. When you feel empty, it is not enough to avoid negativity. You must actively pursue words that remind you of who you really are and what you are worth. This is why Scripture, uplifting messages, and timeless wisdom have such power. They cut through the noise of the lies and remind you of the foundation you stand on. When you read a promise that says you are never alone, or that your life has meaning, or that you are loved with an everlasting love, you are not just reading words. You are planting seeds of truth in the soil of your soul. At first, those seeds may feel small compared to the weight of the lies, but with consistency, they begin to grow. Each time you replace a thought of defeat with a promise of hope, you are strengthening your inner life. Each time you silence a whisper of unworthiness with the reminder of your value, you are reclaiming ground that emptiness once occupied. Over time, those small acts of filling your mind with truth create a shield around your heart. The lies may still knock at the door, but they no longer find a home to settle in. This practice also requires paying attention to voices you allow into your life. If you are constantly surrounded by negativity, criticism, and fear, emptiness will only deepen. But if you surround yourself with people and messages that point you toward hope, encouragement, and faith, you will find your emptiness beginning to shrink. Community plays a powerful role in reinforcing truth. When you cannot speak it over yourself, others can speak it over you. When you doubt your worth, others can remind you of it. When you forget the bigger picture, others can lift your eyes to see it again. Another way to fill your mind with truth is through personal reflection and declaration. Writing down truths about who you are and reading them daily can begin to reshape the way you think. For example, if the lie tells you you are alone, the truth you declare could be, I am never abandoned. I am loved and seen. If the lie says you are not enough, the truth is, I am created with purpose and value. Speaking these truths out loud is power, because your ears need to hear what your heart is struggling to believe. Over time, these declarations begin to sink in and transform the way you see yourself. It is also important to understand that feelings are not always the best indicators of truth. You may feel empty, but that does not mean you are without hope. You may feel unloved, but that does not mean you are unworthy. You may feel weak, but that does not mean you are powerless. Emotions are real, but they are not always reliable. Truth is what steadies you when your emotions fluctuate. It is what holds you steady when the storms of life try to shake you. One of the challenges with emptiness is that it often brings fatigue. When you are weary, it is harder to fight off lies. That is why preparing in advance by filling your mind with truth daily is so important. Just like eating nourishing food strengthens your body before sickness comes, filling your mind with truth strengthens your soul before emptiness tries to overtake it. It is not just a reaction, it is preparation. Think of your mind as a house. Lies are like intruders trying to break in. If the house is empty and unguarded, they will easily take over. But if the house is filled with truth and protected by it, those intruders cannot find a foothold. The best way to protect yourself against the lies that deepen emptiness is to keep your inner life full of truth at all times. That way, when the emptiness comes knocking, you already have something stronger within you to stand against it. And when emptiness sets in, one of the strongest impulses is to pull away from people. It feels easier to retreat, to stay in silence, to avoid conversations and hide the struggle. Isolation often feels safer because it keeps others from seeing the depth of your pain. But what feels safe is not always what is healing. When you isolate yourself, you give emptiness more room to grow. The silence amplifies the lies, and the loneliness magnifies the hollow ache inside. You begin to believe you are the only one who feels this way, that no one could understand, and that reaching out would only burden others. But that is exactly what emptiness thrives on, convincing you to stay hidden so it can continue its grip unchecked. The truth is that emptiness loses its power when it is brought into the light. Sharing your struggle with trusted people creates a doorway for hope to enter. It is in those conversations where you hear words that remind you that you are not alone, that what you are experiencing is not permanent, and that others have walked the same path and come out stronger. When you reach out, you give others the chance to speak life into you at a time when you cannot generate it on your own. And there is no shame in needing that. Every human being was designed for connection. You were never meant to carry the weight of emptiness in silence. Isolation not only deepens emptiness, it also distorts perspective. When you are left alone with your thoughts, they can spiral into exaggerated fears and hopeless scenarios. Small worries grow into mountains, and disappointments turn into conclusions about your worth. Without the balance of outside voices, you risk believing that your emptiness defines you. But when you allow others into your struggle, they help ground you. They remind you of who you are beyond the feelings of the moment. They help you see a bigger picture when all you can focus on is the void inside. Reaching out does not mean exposing your pain to everyone. It means choosing wisely the people who have proven they can handle your honesty with care. A trusted friend, a mentor, a faith community, or even a counselor can be the lifeline you need in moments of emptiness. These are the people who will listen without judgment, encourage without pressure, and remind you of truths you may have forgotten. The act of voicing what you feel begins to loosen the hold of emptiness, because once it is spoken, it no longer festers in secrecy. It is also important to remember that opening up to others does not make you weak. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is courage. It takes far more strength to admit you are struggling than it does to hide behind a mask of composure. And often, your honesty will inspire others to be honest about their own struggles. What you thought was a lonely battle can become the very thing that brings deeper connection and mutual encouragement. This is one of the paradoxes of life. The places we feel most ashamed to reveal are often the places where we find the greatest connection once we share them. Being part of a supportive community also creates accountability. When emptiness tells you to give up, community reminds you to keep going. When you feel too weak to take the next step, others can walk beside you until your strength returns. Human beings were created to live in relationship with one another, not in isolation. That design itself is proof that emptiness cannot be healed in solitude alone. It requires connection. It requires shared life. It requires being willing to let others carry part of the load. Consider how a single coal pulled out of the fire quickly cools and loses its flame, while coals that stay together keep one another burning. The same is true for the soul. When you isolate, your flame begins to fade. When you remain in connection with others, their warmth strengthens you and helps reignite your passion for life. Even when you feel like you have nothing to give, simply being present with others can help you receive the strength you need. Choosing not to isolate also means being intentional about who you spend time with. Surrounding yourself with people who drain you or reinforce your emptiness will not help. You need voices that build you up, that remind you of hope, and that encourage your growth. The quality of your community matters more than the quantity. Even one supportive, encouraging voice can outweigh the silence of isolation or the negativity of unhealthy relationships. There will always be a temptation to withdraw, especially when you feel you have no energy to give. But the truth is that connection does not always require energy. It often gives energy. A simple conversation, a word of encouragement, a shared moment of laughter, or even the quiet presence of someone who cares can breathe life into your weary spirit. You may walk into the moment feeling heavy, but you walk away lighter because someone else helped carry what you could not. The act of breaking isolation is also a reminder that you are not defined by what you feel. You may feel empty, but you are still worthy of love, connection, and support. You may feel like a burden, but the people who truly love you do not see you that way. They see your presence as valuable, even in your weakness. And allowing yourself to be supported deepens your bond with them, creating relationships that are built not just on good times, but on shared resilience through struggles. This is why refusing to isolate yourself is one of the most powerful choices you can make when emptiness comes. It interrupts the cycle of despair. It opens the door for truth to enter. And it reminds you that you were never meant to walk through this life alone. When emptiness overwhelms you, it is easy to believe that this is the final chapter of your story. The hollow ache inside feels permanent, as though nothing could ever fill it again. But emptiness is not the end. It is the beginning of something new. It is not a curse, but a signal. It is a reminder that you were never meant to live disconnected, never meant to survive on your own strength, never meant to carry life without a deeper purpose. Emptiness is an alarm clock that awakens you to the truth that you cannot run on your own fuel. It is a call to return to the source of love, strength, and meaning that you were created to depend on. Seeing emptiness as a beginning rather than an end changes everything. Instead of interpreting it as proof that you are broken, you begin to see it as proof that your heart is still alive, still longing for what it was made for. Emptiness is not failure. It is the space where growth is about to happen. Just as the soil must first be cleared before new seeds can be planted, emptiness clears away illusions and false comforts so that something real can take root. It strips you of what is shallow, leaving you ready for what is deep. It exposes the limits of quick fixes, achievements, and distractions, reminding you that true fulfillment comes only from a connection to what is eternal. Consider how darkness works. At first, it feels suffocating, but it is in the darkness that you begin to search for light. Without darkness, you might never notice how precious the light truly is. In the same way, emptiness can feel overwhelming, but it sharpens your hunger for fullness. It pushes you to seek beyond yourself, to lift your eyes to something higher, to discover that your life was meant for more than surviving. Emptiness forces you to ask deeper questions, questions that lead you back to the foundations of who you are and why you exist. What if emptiness is not a punishment, but a preparation? What if the hollow feeling you carry is making room for something greater than you can imagine? The moments when you feel like you have nothing left are often the moments when you are most open to receive what is real and lasting. Emptiness takes away your illusions of control and leaves you in a posture of humility. And it is in humility that true transformation happens. You may not realize it in the moment, but some of the strongest, most grounded people you will ever meet are those who walked through emptiness and allowed it to reshape them. They stopped chasing shallow solutions. They stopped hiding behind masks, and they let their emptiness drive them back to the source of life. Out of their emptiness came clarity, purpose, and strength that could not have been gained any other way. The truth is that emptiness is a turning point. It presents you with a choice. You can let it pull you into despair, or you can let it point you toward renewal. You can treat it as a dead end, or you can see it as the doorway into a deeper life. The choice you make determines what happens next. If you lean into the emptiness with honesty, humility, and openness, it becomes the place where hope is reborn. Do not despise your emptiness. Do not see it as the end of your worth or the collapse of your future. See it as the very ground where new life begins. Because emptiness is not permanent. It is a season, a signal, a sacred pause that clears the way for transformation. What feels like the end is often the place where something greater is about to start. Your emptiness is not the end of your story. It is the place where the author of your story picks up the pen again and writes a chapter far greater than the one before. So when you feel empty, do not give up. Do not assume you are finished. Do not believe the lie that nothing good can come from this. Remember that emptiness is not the absence of everything. It is the reminder of the one thing you need most. Let it guide you back to the source that can fill you completely. And as you do, you will discover that the very emptiness you feared was actually the beginning of your renewal, the starting point of your strength, and the doorway into a life filled with deeper purpose and unshakable hope.